Okay, so again, this is the USA Test Prep 101 getting started session. So we'll go through how to get everything set up and some of the different resources that we have available. We also have a 201 and 301 session if you're interested after this how to learn how to create benchmarks, assignments, and view the results for everything. So we do offer different sessions for those. So here's the USA Test Prep homepage, and the first thing I just want to quickly point out is how to get your account set up. More than likely, you all already have your account created, but just in case, when you go to the website, you'll click on the orange login button in the top right corner, and this is where you'll always go to get logged in. But for the very first time, over here on the left, you'll click Create Account, and the two things that you need to have are your school's account ID and a teacher activation code. Both of those should be provided to you by your school. So if you do not have either one of those, find someone who has an account, or the person who is your account administrator at your school will have those. And then once you set up your account, again, you'll come back here to get logged in. And I'm just going to log in as a sample teacher today because there's already plenty of data in here to show you. But everything I'm going to go through is the same as what is in your account, whether you teach elementary, middle, or high school. So here's the teacher homepage. And the first thing we're going to go through here is how to get your classes set up, because that's very important to being able to create assignments and benchmarks for students, is to go ahead and get those classes created. So we're going to click on the link to create new class, and you'll give your class a title, whatever you'd like to call it. And then just make sure for your specific state and your level that you select the different content areas that you want access to for this class. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose, let's say, 8th grade math and continue. And step 2 is where you can go ahead and add students into your class. And to add a student, you would have to go through the list alphabetically by last name and add those students. Now, we have a grade filter option, so if your school has a lot of students and you're only looking, let's say for 7th grade, I can narrow it down just to the grade level I'm looking for. If you don't see students here, or you're not seeing a specific student, that means that their account is not set up for them yet. There's a couple ways that schools go about getting students in the system. A lot of schools choose to do a bulk upload and just automatically create student accounts all at one time through a spreadsheet template that we have. Or other schools allow students to go in and create their own account. So again, it's going to depend on what your school has chosen to do, and that would be a question for your account administrator if you don't see a student listed there who should be in your class. But assuming your students are in here, you can go ahead and add them. And again, this is one way. I'm going to log in as a student in a little bit, and I'll show you how a student can join your class instead of you having to add them. And for some teachers, they like putting the responsibility on the students and just having the student join, and it will save you a lot of time, as you can imagine, to not have to go through each letter, to find your students here. So I'm just going to go ahead and save with the students that I have added. And so here's the class created. And for every class that you create, there's an option to add a secondary teacher. So if you team teach and you need to share this class with another teacher at your school, you can click Select Teacher, find that teacher's name, as long as they have their account set up, and you can confirm that you want to share the class, and then they will be able to see the gradebook and all of the results for that class. Okay, also on this page, you can see your students' login information. So if you have students who are not sure how to log in, if it's your entire class, we do offer password cards that you can print out for students. And if you just needed to look up a single student, maybe you're in the computer lab one day and that one student can't remember how to log in, you can just click Show Login and that will show their username and their password. Also on here, you can track how many logins your students have, when their most recent login to the site was, and their total time. That total time is updated nightly. So if your students are working that day, you're not going to see that change right away. But it's active time on the site. So it's not just time that students have logged into the site, but it's time that they actually have clicked to start an activity from the time that they finish. All right, so that's how you get your class set up and add students into your class. So I'm going to go back home, and right here is that 5th period sample class that I just created. And you'll notice there's a little pink S, which indicates that the class is shared with another teacher. So that means that now I could create assignments for that class and benchmarks, which again are covered in a different session that we offer, but hopefully that's something that you'll decide to go through, because really that's one of the most critical parts of the site and being able to track how students are doing. So for the next section that we're going to go through are some different resources that you have access to, and you can access these resources in 2 ways. You can click on the pink button on your Classes tab. So if you hover over it, it says Resources. You can also get there if you were to use these different tabs along the top. Let's say I used 8th grade math earlier. I could go here to 8th and drop down to math, and it's going to take me to the same place as if I click here. And so again, whether you teach any level or any content area, this page will look the same. Every content area has the same resources available. In this top section, we have online resources. The ones I want to point out first are the bell ringer, which is really just a nice kind of warm-up question that you can use with your class. And the online resources are great because you don't have to take your students to the computer lab or have students have their own devices. This is something you can use just with one computer and a projector. So that way, if you're more limited with technology, you can still benefit and use the questions that are here. So I'm going to go ahead and choose what kind of question I want. I'm going to choose multiple choice, pick my standard, and I'm going to click to load questions. And I'll have 5 different options to look through, and I can see which one I like the best. We also have a place if you want to add optional instructions for students, you can. So that way, if you were using this as a true warm-up question and you wanted to display instructions for students as they enter your classroom, you could type those in there. And then you can click to display question when you're ready, and it's going to have it in a full screen for you, and you can again display this to the students. Notice the correct answer is not shown right away because the idea is that students will work on it, and then if you want to talk about it as a class and choose the answer that they believe is correct, no matter what answer you choose, it will show you what the right answer is, and you'll have an explanation of the right answer at the top. So that's the bell ringer. Again, it's just a quick, easy way that you can use a question and talk about it with your class. So if I go back to the bell ringer, again, I could go through and pick a different one. Okay, also within the online resource section, we do have an item of the day. So if you're just looking for a quick random question, you don't really care what standard it comes from, you can click this, and that will give you just one random question from any standard for your content area. You can also look at a random vocabulary term or video of the day. And students have those as well. When they log into their account, they could do that practice on their own. Also, on the online resource section, we have a link to all of our videos. So if I click on videos, I get links to all the different titles. We do have a search box if you know exactly what you're looking for. And you can switch to the thumbnail if you want to see just a preview of what kind of video it is. We do have lots of live speaker videos. We're transitioning more to screencasts and things along that nature that are slightly more engaging for students. But this is where you could come to preview a video. So if you're thinking about assigning it to your class, you could come here to watch it ahead of time, and you can see the questions that go along with that video. If you're assigning it, the videos also have a timer, so that way students can't come here and just quickly answer the questions. The idea is that they should watch at least, most of the video before they can answer those. But also from here, you don't have to assign a video. You could just choose to play the video for your class and then talk about the questions together. So it's just another idea, or if you're working in a small group and you want a small group to watch the video and answer the questions together, you could go through it that way. So we have a lot of videos, and we're always adding to these throughout the year. So we do have a latest video section at the top where you can view the ones that are the most recent. Okay, also on this resource page, in the next section, we have some printable resources. These include, if you want to print out crossword or word search puzzles, we have different options there. We also have class activities, which are essentially like a handout that you could give to a student. You can, again, preview it. They're PDF files, and then we have answer keys to go along with those. And then the last section are projector games. And these are really fun if, again, students don't have their own devices or you don't have the computer lab for that day. You can play a game with your entire class. And so you can pick out your theme. So if I pick Think or Swim, I can create my teams, choose exactly what standards I want the game questions to come from. And I'm just going to quickly resume this game so you can see what it looks like. So here's the game board. It has Team A to choose a question, so they can tell me which one they want, and then they can look at the question. And the nice thing about this particular game is every team answers every question. So even though Team A chose this question, at this point in the class, every team would be writing it down. If they have like a whiteboard or piece of paper to record their answers, and then you can reveal the correct answer. In this case, it is D, and you can mark which teams answer that question correctly and click to record the answers, and it's going to automatically update the score. So that's a fun game, again, that you could quickly do with your class without a lot of prep time involved. And again, we have different themes. So that's just one example, but we have a couple others there. Now at the bottom, you have this View Standards button, and when you click on that, a whole nother section is going to load. And it tells you this is a preview of what's available to students. So right now, when you scroll down, this is what your students would see if they went to this page, and that's what we're going to look at now, because I'm going to log in as a student to point out a few key features of the student side. So let's go and go back home. And I'm going to go to this gear icon on the far right. It's the Manage Class button for your class. And it's the same screen that we saw earlier after we created the class. I pointed this out. But the thing here is that you can quickly log in as any of your students. So you have a login link, and you can just use that. And that jumps you right in as that student. So this, again, is a really quick way where you can come check out what your students are seeing. And on the student homepage, a couple things. One is that a student can join a class. So if you prefer not to add students to your class, but instead have them join your class, it's very easy. They click Join a Class, they find your name, and as long as you have created your different classes, they can pick the one that they're in and then click to join. So again, very quick and easy for them to do that if you want to ask that of them versus adding the students yourself. So either way. Also on the home page, Students have access to their graded work. So everything that a student does gets recorded and placed into their graded work. So it's just a history of everything they've done. Here I can see something I did back in October, and I can always go back and actually view the details and see by standard how I did. This particular result is a benchmark, so the questions were not shown to me afterwards, but if it's practice, then students will have the questions and answers here so that they can go back and review. Also on the home page, students have a link to the arcade. This is where we have a bunch of different games, and many of the games do have a cost of a certain number of tokens. Because everything that a student does on the site can earn them tokens. So if they're completing any kind of assignment that you've given them, or if they're doing practice on their own, they're earning tokens based on their score, and they can use those tokens to come here and play a game. Now we do have some free games as well, so those are clearly marked that they're free. The difference with those is that students have to answer questions as they play the game. Versus the games that cost tokens, there's no questions involved. They just simply get to play and enjoy the game. So that's a link to the arcade. Now, if students have any assignments, they're going to be right here on their homepage. So they would be listed right below this message. And that makes it very convenient for students to be able to find their assignments. They don't have to go digging around on the site for those. It will be clearly listed right here. And students can also switch from a list view to a calendar view. So when I switch to a calendar, right now I don't have any assignments, but if a student has an assignment, it's going to show it on the due date. So if I had something due tomorrow, it would be listed here and I could just click on it and begin. Now, students, in addition to assignments, can also go to any content area page and work there. So if I go to, let's say, 6th grade ELA, here is that same preview that we saw when we were logged in as a teacher. And what's really nice about this page for a student is that they can take a practice test. So they can go through and pick how long of a random practice test they want to complete, and then go through it and instantly get their score and feedback. Then students can also click on any standard here to work on some practice. So they can work on random practice questions, vocabulary, what we call performance tasks, which are a little bit more interactive type of activities. They can watch videos, and they can also complete a puzzle. So if I wanted to complete, let's say, practice questions, I can choose what level. I'm going to choose random. And because this is something that a student is choosing to do on their own, meaning it wasn't something that any teacher assigned, it was just something I picked, I have the choice whether to assign it to my teacher or not. So I'm going to choose to show it to my teacher because let's say I'm hoping for some extra credit, and click begin. And so here's an example of a set of practice questions where the student has one question at a time. They can use a hint at the bottom. There's a hint available for all practice questions, and then they can click the one they believe is correct, submit, and they'll see what the correct answer was and an explanation. And then they can move on to the next question. So I'm going to quickly go through this set and hope I get at least one right. Just to show what the results at the end look like. Okay, so that one I got right. Okay, so my final score was 20. As you can see, I earned 1 token. Now, if I had earned a better score, I would have received more tokens for that. But if a student earns anything over a 0, then we do give at least 1 token just to encourage their progress. You can see I can retry the ones I missed, or I can just go ahead and view the results. So I just want to view the results. As you can see, I can no longer retry the missed questions. And when I go down here, here's all the questions. I can go back and view each one and see how I answered it and what the right answer was. So students have all of this available to them. And if I go back to this page, you can see it shows my best score is a 20. In order for this box to be complete, I have to score over a 66% on practice questions. And then likewise with at least a 66% for vocabulary terms, performance tasks, and the videos. Now, one change is I have a little pink dot right here, and that's to indicate my score for this standard. So if I click on the dot rank link, the pink dot means that my average is right now below a 66%, which obviously it is since I scored a 20. So that's just a great visual that students have. And the idea is that as they look at this, they can quickly pinpoint those pink dot areas and really focus in on those versus the others where they may have already a green dot. And there's a couple different ways that students can calculate that dot. They can either have it to include all their test and benchmark data, or they can only have it match their best practice score, which right now in my case it's the same. But as students start working on more activities on the site, there might be a slight variation, if they want to have it just based on their best score or everything that they've done. All right, then finally, the last thing I want to mention is at the bottom of every single page, we have a feedback and contact button. This is a really great way to get in touch with us, especially if you're in the middle of class and you can't get to the phone to give us a call. You can click on that button. It's going to automatically fill in with your account information, and you can send in whatever kind of question or issue you're having, and that will go to the right person in our office to be able to help. And we respond very quickly. So that's a great way to reach out. Also, let me go back to the teacher account. You'll notice at the top, since I kind of tunneled in to the student account, I have a link at the top to go back to mine. So I'm going to click on that link, and now I'm back into my account. So it's very easy to go back and forth. And again, the teacher also has the feedback and contact button at the bottom. And then also on the teacher homepage, you have the webinars button over here on the right. And so here are the different sessions. So the next one, if you haven't already, there's a 201 and 301. And so those go through creating assignments, benchmarks, how to view the results for everything and the different kind of reports that we have. And we have pre-recorded versions of both of those. We also have live sessions as well, if that's what you'd prefer. You can just click on that link and see what available times we have, and hopefully you'll be able to get that information. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to stick around for a few minutes and answer any questions that come through. Otherwise, I very much appreciate your time today and hope you have a great rest of your day. One question is revolving around the game arcade, which is something that you may have noticed, but I didn't point out earlier. If I go back to the Manage Class page over on the right, that little gear icon, when I logged in as a student, again, I pointed out the game arcade that students can go in and play. Some teachers we felt would not want students to be able to access that during an entire class period. So what you can do is you can click Lock Game Arcade, and you can set how long you want the arcade to be locked for. So if I know my class, let's say it's 50 minutes, so I'm going to lock it for 45. And click Lock. So now that lock is going. And if I come to unlock Game Arcade, there's a countdown. this is what students will now see when they go to the arcade. So that way they can't play games. They can see exactly what teacher has locked it, again, when it's going to expire. And if your students have finished early and you want to go ahead and unlock the arcade, you can. Just use the unlock button, and then you can unlock it at any time, even before it's set to expire. So that's something that will hopefully help with classroom management if you feel like the arcade might be a potential issue. So good question. Feel free to let me know if there's anything else. Okay, I don't see any more questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end the session. If you think of anything afterwards, feel free to reach out. I'm going to type my email in the chat box. It's just Shannon@USATestprep.com. So again, thanks so much for your time today, and have a good rest of your afternoon.